Hi everyone, it's Kerry Griffiths, Willow Brook Lifestyle Financial Planning. I'm joined today by an amazing guest, and we have got a really important topic to talk about with you today, and that's coercive control. And I've brought an expert in to talk to us about that, who is Caron Kipping from Caron Kipping Coaching. I know Caron really well. She's part of the group Hug, and I'm a real advocate of what she does. She has walked the walk and she knows what women in this kind of environment are experiencing. So I'm going to hand over to Caron and she can tell you a little bit more about her background, and then we'll jump straight in. So Caron, over to you.
Thanks, Kerry. So just to start right back at the beginning, I was in a coercive controlling relationship, ended up going through divorce and separation, which was really tricky. Because back in the day there was no support, there was no real understanding of coercive control and what that meant and how that affected you.
Yes.
So I kind of struggled, got through that, and then what I did a few years after that was I went on and I learnt more about domestic abuse, and I went on and trained as an IDVA. So an IDVA is an independent domestic violence advocate. And they are the professionals that support victims right the way through. They've got a really good understanding about risk. And what they do is they talk through all the different options with you, and really empower you to break that cycle. So I've worked with mainly high-risk victims for the last 14 years nearly with my local domestic abuse charity. And then what I was starting to recognise was that there were a lot of women calling up the charity and that I was meeting locally in the community, and they were talking to me saying, oh God, I wish I'd had help through my divorce. You know, years ago, you know, I could have really done with some help. And women that were ringing up the charity, asking for support around issues like child contact, you know, conflict around co-parenting, that kind of thing. But it wouldn't really fit the remit for the work that the charity does, because they mainly support people that are in that higher risk bracket. And I was thinking, where do these women go? Because they obviously are, like I was, just really struggling and reaching out for advice, but not really understanding where to go. And they didn't really kind of fit any other kind of organisation either. So I went on and I did some training as a divorce coach, and I've kind of married everything together and kind of blended it all together. And so now I can support those women and I can help them with those kind of issues. So they can come to me, we can talk over Zoom and FaceTime and things like that. And we can really help rebuild that confidence and that self-esteem, and I can really help them move kind of through that journey. So I'm there to support them however they want that support, right from the beginning all the way through to the end, where they you know, maybe are separated and they just need a little bit of advice around those kind of co-parenting issues. And you know, redesigning their future really, and thinking about what they want, because it's very different to what they imagined when they got into that relationship.
Absolutely.
And, you know, that kind of stuff, it takes a long time to rebuild, you know, especially if you've got children with that person, you're always going to have that connection. So, you know, you need to find some strategies and some ways to manage that kind of controlling behaviour if that's still happening. You know, you've still got to keep in touch with that person, or you know, you might be really struggling with your confidence. So we can work on all those kind of things, and it's just having support from somebody who's been there and done that and knows what it's like.
It's so super valuable. It's a really needed support, and it's something that, like you say, women go on a journey, and to know that there is somebody that they could rely on who has that picture in front of them of what could be coming. You know, we're never going to know definitely, but just kind of that foresight of what could be coming and how to navigate it is just superb. So well done. I do love what you do, Caron. So, Caron, some people might be watching this video and not necessarily aware of the wording that we use as divorce professionals, because we've become really familiar with some terms and some ideas, one of which is coercive control. And I do think it is getting into the media. Words like coercive control and narcissism are starting to kind of become things that a wider population are becoming aware of. But I thought it'd be really useful if we started there and just really define what is coercive control, in the hope that a woman watching this might recognize some patterns of behavior that she hadn't identified as being coercive. So do you want to kick off with that, Caron?
Yeah, sure. And I think you are right. It is becoming more widely recognized. But I see an awful lot of women still that come to me saying, you know, I want to divorce my husband. You know, I've never been happy. You know, he's always been very selfish, or he's always been, you know, a bit controlling, but they don't really recognize it as coercive control until we really start to unpick those behaviors. And then all of a sudden they go, oh my gosh, you know, this is coercive control. I never really understood it. I knew I was never happy. I knew it never felt right, but I didn't really understand it. And actually that can give you a bit of a light bulb moment. And, you know, it really kind of validates how you're feeling, I think, because coercive control is one of those things that's really hard to evidence, and it's really hard to explain to other people. You know, if you take those individual behaviours and you said to your friend, oh, he's doing this, or, you know, my ex is doing that, it doesn't really sound that dramatic. You know, it doesn't really sound that scary. But when you put all these behaviours together in this kind of melting pot and you're living with it on a daily basis, what that does is it really chips away at your confidence and your self-esteem. Yeah. So some of the things that you might recognise are isolation. So coercive control is really about making you do things that you don't really want to do in normal circumstances. So you might feel that you have to behave in a certain way because you feel under pressure or because you're worried about consequences.
Okay.
So you tend to not say anything, because if you say something, then your partner's going to react in, you know, maybe an angry way, or, you know, they're going to start shouting or bullying and that kind of thing. And so gradually over time you stop talking and you stop having an opinion. So it's about controlling your behavior and making you conform to the way that they are happy with, right? So isolation is one of the most powerful tactics that they use. So the quicker they can isolate you from any potential sources of support, whether that's professional or personal, so friends and family, you know, that makes that control the more powerful. So they may stop you from working. They may decide to up sticks and move across the country to an area where actually you don't know anybody. You don't know the area. That's really quite isolating. Or they may move you several times. And, you know, some of the ways that they do that can be quite subtle. You know, they're not going to say, right, we're moving because I don't want you having contact with your friends and family. They will kind of wrap it up in a way that sounds like it's a good thing. It sounds like it's a positive thing.
Yeah.
And so you don't recognise the intention behind that which is to isolate you. So the other way that they use coercive control is monitoring. So they monitor your behaviour. So they may monitor who you talk to, where you go, how long it takes you. And the purpose with monitoring, again, is to have that control over you. Make sure that you're not talking to people. Make sure that you're not divulging what your life is like behind closed doors. Monitoring your behaviour to make sure that it's acceptable to them, you know, kind of monitoring how you look as well, how you dress, you know, that they can use that kind of emotional abuse to like I say, chip away at your confidence. Oh, you know, oh, are you wearing that dress today, are you? That kind of thing. You know, don't you think that skirt's a bit short? Don't you think you're wearing a bit too much makeup? And those kind of comments, although they're really small things, what they do is they get you questioning everything. So then you start thinking, oh, am I wearing too much lipstick? Is that skirt a bit too short? Am I looking a bit tarty? Should I be talking to this person? Am I spending a bit too long with my mum, you know, when I go and see her? You know, it really starts that self-doubt.
Yeah.
And it can be quite confusing, right? So they're not horrible all the time. Sometimes they're
gradual, isn't it?
It's very, very gradual. It's a drip, drip, drip effect.
Yeah.
And so you don't see that this is happening until, you know, a few years or months down the line. And all of a sudden you sit there and you think, oh my gosh, I've actually lost contact with my family. All my friends have drifted away. You know, where do I go to get help? Like, is this normal? Is it me? Is it my fault? So you have all these questions going around your head. And what makes it even more powerful is then the threats come in. So the threats, if you leave me, I'm going to take all the money. I'm going to leave you homeless. I'm going to take the kids. I'm going to go for full custody. You're never going to see them again. You know, all of those really, really powerful threats. And those threats, again, are designed to keep you there, to keep you in that relationship, because they don't want to lose that control over you. So, you know, and of course, if somebody tells you these things all the time, you're going to believe them, right? If they say, you know, you're not going to be entitled to the house, you're never going to survive on your own, you're never going to cope on your own, you know, those kind of things, you do believe them. And that makes it harder.
And by this point, you've lost your sounding boards, haven't you? Because you're so...
Of course. And you've got nobody to bounce those questions off of.
Yeah.
And, you know, how do you know if that's right? You know, if your husband is telling you that you're not going to be entitled to anything and that he's going to, you know, screw you over financially, you know, how do you know what else to believe? You know, that may actually not be right at all. You know, you may well be entitled to, you know, a decent amount of money that will actually stand you in good stead if you decide to leave.
Yeah. But
of course, you're going to believe your husband because that's what you've been told until you get the right advice from the right professionals. So, you know, if you can get the advice from the right people, that really is quite empowering.
It opens the door, doesn't it? That kind of journey start. The journey, recovery can start. Yeah. You just start thinking, oh, maybe that is a possibility then. Maybe I could do this. And you start to change those negative beliefs into kind of positive thoughts. Yeah. And you start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And that gives you the confidence. But it's really important at the same time that you have that support from somebody who understands about risk. Because although these behaviours are quite subtle, it can tip over into that physical abuse. That risk can escalate when that person feels like they're losing control. That makes sense. So that is really important. And, you know, we can't forget that, you know, women die because of this kind of behaviour. That, you know, every week in this country, women do die. And actually, in most of those circumstances, there won't have been physical abuse in the lead up to that point. But there will be a whole pattern of coercive control. Yeah. So, you know, I don't want to frighten people, but at the same time, you know, you have to recognise that that is a potential. So, you know, don't try and manage this by yourself. Separation is one of those key times when you do really need to get that proper professional advice and support. And kind of what top tips would you have for somebody who's divorcing someone who is coercive then? How, you know, what kind of things can they do and how can they navigate this? So my top tip, first of all, is to not mention that you are getting
support and advice in the first place, because you have to, because the worst thing you can do is say, actually, I'm going to see a solicitor about getting a divorce, because that will be like a red rag to a bull.
Okay.
You have to get all of that advice and get all your ducks in a row, you know, before you actually make that break and have that conversation. And you have to have a plan of how you're going to do that and how you're going to do that safely.
Okay.
So that is the first thing, is to just act normal. You know, if you have to say whatever you need to say just to keep the situation calm, all right, just kind of carry on as it is. And that can be quite tough, because of course, you know, if you are starting to feel more confident about a future that is different from the one that your partner wants, you know, that can be quite difficult to keep that secret, but it's really important initially.
Okay.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is to get advice from solicitors, and solicitors that understand about coercive control and domestic abuse.
Yeah.
Get advice from somebody like yourself. You know, if you've got finances together and you want to understand, you know, what that financial picture might look like.
Yeah.
Separate. Getting support from friends and family that maybe you have lost contact with a little bit, or maybe who have tried to help you in the past and not being quite ready. You know, start to try and rebuild those relationships. So have support, but you know, you don't want them to get too involved at the moment, because that can kind of, you know, make the situation a bit more tricky initially. But you want to have people that you can go to when you need a cup of tea and you need to offload about what's happening, or you just need that emotional support.
That makes sense.
So it's trying to build a support team around you so that you don't feel like you're on your own. Because I'm not going to lie, you know, if you are divorcing or separating from somebody who has these kind of personality traits, it's not going to be easy. But it's
the actual divorce needs to be different, doesn't it? Like, I know we've talked in the past, and the way you divorce somebody who's coercive actually should be different.
Yeah, you have to take a really kind of proactive approach, and sometimes you have to take quite a hard and tough approach with them, because you have to put in really clear boundaries. Because, you know, when you're separating from somebody who is a narcissist or who has got really controlling behaviour, they want to keep that control, and they're not going to like what you say, and they're unlikely to mediate, because to mediate, you have to be in the mindset where you're willing to negotiate.
Yeah,
and with it, they're not going to. Yeah. So you have to take quite a hard-nosed approach with them, and you have to stick really firmly to those boundaries.
And really time-scaled as well, because they like the play, they like the argument, and actually moving it to kind of conclusion quickly is often the route that you need to take, isn't it, Caron?
Oh yeah, if you can do that, then you know it's all good, because otherwise they will drag it out and drag it out and drag it out. So again, that comes with confidence, though. You know, in the beginning you might not feel that confident, and you might be feeling quite sorry for them. You know, generally, you know, these kind of women that are in these kind of relationships are very empathetic, and you know, that can actually hold you back from getting the best results for you. Yeah. So you have to kind of switch that mindset and start putting your needs first.
Absolutely.
And use the advice that you are being given from the professionals, because they've dealt with lots of other cases like this before, you know.
Can you recover from this, Caron?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I'm really passionate about that. Okay. I hear lots of women going, oh, you know, this is just how it is. You know, maybe this is just how marriage is. This is just how relationships are. Actually, no, it's not. This is not normal behaviour, and it's not healthy behaviour. And also, I think if you've got children, you know, please be mindful of that, because children pick up on this behaviour and they learn from it and they will copy it. So sometimes the children can be the trigger for women to get out of these kind of unhealthy relationships. And yeah, absolutely, you can recover from it. You know, you can live your best life afterwards. It's, you know, it's just understanding and learning how to manage it in the interim.
Yes.
If you still have to have contact with your ex because of your children, right? It's, if you can kind of compartmentalize it so it doesn't influence the rest of your life, you're more than capable of moving on, you know, and starting new relationships that are healthy, you know, because
I think there's a whole video we could do on that, Caron. And would you be willing to come back? I'm going to put you on the spot live now. Would you come back and talk a little bit about that journey?
As you can tell, I can talk all day long about it.
That would be, it'd be great to have that positive spin on kind of how you can then use the confidence and the skills that you've learned to navigate your future life and kind of just keep a box on what's going on with the ex.
Yeah.
Like you say, you're still actually going to be kind of in your life for a period if there are children. So how do you box that off? That'd be a great video.
Yeah, definitely. You know, and actually, although it's a really difficult process, you know, going through this coercive control, you know, it's awful when you're living with that on a daily basis, but you can come out the other side, and the skills that you learn from having to, you know, be in that kind of relationship can actually stand you in good stead for the future. You know, you can come out and you can, you know, have really clear boundaries and make sure that, you know, you don't end up experiencing the same thing in future. And actually, it really helps you focus on what you want.
Absolutely.
And yeah, just appreciating everything that makes you happy going forwards.
Definitely. Yeah. That sense of what the meaning of life is for you definitely comes through with the women that I work with in this kind of environment. Definitely. Caron, that has been absolutely amazing. I could talk to you all day. I'm sure our clients could listen to you all day. So I'm definitely going to have you back on as a guest. If you can't wait for that and you want to hear more from Caron, then I am going to put her links in the description below. So please go and check her out on her website and on LinkedIn, and her contact details there if you want to make contact with her as well. Thank you, Caron. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.